With all the big calls on all the big races. Welcome to the first in 2022. What a shout coming your way somewhere in the capital, filmed on a Friday morning. Myself, Dave Orton, delighted to be back in the chair with you, looking at all the big races for you and those hot topics out there as well. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. Of course, if you're on Facebook, let us know all your comments below and anything on Twitter. Hashtag what a shout with our Spencers. Bet365. Paul Kealy comes back into the studio. I had you on a nice Skype at Bruce Millington's. You were playing golf, but we've reeled you in today, Kills. Happy New Year to you.
Yeah, hard to believe, isn't it? Playing golf on New Year's Eve, and it was really warm. I was in shirt sleeves by the end of the afternoon.
It's changed a little bit now.
Freezing.
Now, you are our resident weatherman, as I always say, and you also live near Sandown, where our Grade 1
I live about 5 miles away from Sandown. They say they only had 2 mil last night. It lashed down a couple of times, really heavy where I was, so they've obviously missed the worst of that. Going to rain all day tomorrow. By the end of the card, by Tolworth hurdle time, the hurdles course will be bottomless.
Do we want to be looking for tractors then?
Definitely, very much so. Particularly, obviously, on the hurdles course because it gets very deep.
All right, okay, all right. So some tricky racing the first weekend for you, but we're going to help you solve the puzzle. And to give us the market news will be Pat Cooney. Where are you, Pat? Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year, fellas. Yeah, in Stoke-on-Trent at the moment. It was snowing yesterday and freezing cold today. So, got an extra jumper on.
It's finally come, the winter, hasn't it? Right, we've scoured the racing world for you, and with the Tolworth in mind, and just a general chat about the season and how he's doing so far, we can call him the King of the North. Shall we go to... John Dance joins us, the mighty owner himself, somewhere in his office, I think. John, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I knew Pat Cooney would be plugging Bet365 all the while, so I thought I'd go with a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. You must have seen this show before. He'll definitely do a lot of plugging. Don't worry about that. John, Happy New Year to you and your family. Did you have a good Christmas?
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much. We're kind of in semi-lockdown since as Jess has the Rona, so juggling a few balls at the minute.
Now, John, you are a real success story, John. Let's have a little chat with you, if you don't mind, quickly. Obviously, we can get you, lovely graphic up of your top horses. John, how on earth did you get into racing?
Well, I guess my dad was a follower of racing when I was growing up anyway, so I was obviously relatively conscious of it. I didn't really get that involved other than at Grand National time as a kid. I remember our whole family being on grease paint or something virtually every Grand National because my dad used to draw it in the firm's sweepstake. But it was when I started working in the city, really, working for big investment banks, and although there was a day job to do, virtually all the traders, their main priority was spread betting and gambling and, anything that they could have a punt on, really. And the science behind their picks was pretty ropey, which seemed slightly ironic for a very analytical industry. So just got into sort of form assessment and doing my own analysis and became kind of hooked then. 25 plus years ago now.
When doing my research on John this week, let me jump in, because if you go to Vertem's website, right, you've got about John Dance, his life story basically about how he got into his work and, the investment markets he's in. And then there's literally half the page is about racing. It's absolutely fantastic. Kills, so he's a man after our own heart.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you love racing, then we love you, basically. It's as simple as that, isn't it? Because it's basically all I love these days. I watch very little other sports.
Yeah.
Get well into it.
And Lauren's, that was some 2018-19.
The thing with punters in general, they love two things about horses. One, they love class. Everyone likes to see other class. And another, they love attitude. And Lauren's would have run through a brick wall for you. You knew that if you backed her, she was going to try her heart out. And she won. She may not have been by miles the best horse in all those races she won, but she wanted to win. You know what I mean? And she, she won 4, 5, 6,
went on
six
anything.
Group Ones.
Yeah.
Went on any ground and just turned up at pretty much every time. So I mean, that's why horses like that get a following. It's not just the races they win; it's how they do it.
Yeah.
And she was tough as old boots.
Yeah, trained by Carl Burt, ridden by PJ McDonald. What was the absolute highlight of her career, John? Was it the Prix de Diane in France?
Depends what day of the week it is when you ask me this question, to be honest. Because they all have great memories. The Phillies Mile, our first Group 1 as owners, being part of PJ's first Group 1 winner as a jockey was quite special to us because we're really good friends. That meant a lot. The Prix-d'Am was a pretty special day. It's a huge race in France. It's a much bigger race to the French than it is maybe to the rest of the world, and it's got much more parity with the Arc, and they treat us like absolute royalty, before the race as well as after it. So it was a pretty special day. But I guess they were all uniquely special one way or another. So, like I say, it depends what day of the week you ask me, and something else will stand out. The Matron Stakes win was pretty special, and it was great to be part of what was fairly uniquely amazing career, really.
Yeah, of course, when she beat Alpha Centauri in the Matron Stakes, she just broke her that day, didn't she? A real top notcher. So, John, how is she now? What's the next step for her? Is she in foal?
She's already got one foal, an Invincible Spirit, nice big size for her first foal. She's due again in March, I believe, with a Kingman. And then next couple of days, I guess we'll sort of commit to who she sees this year. All being well. So she seems to be adjusting and enjoying life out in the paddock, and she's just as much a sort of a diva out there as she was at home in her box and round the parade ring. So yeah, she's not changed.
Yeah, how to enjoy life as well. I mean, you talk about a diva there, John. You also like getting behind the wheels of steel, don't you? Did you do anything on New Year's Eve?
Yeah. I played. Actually, part owner of a club in Newcastle, and I was lucky enough to play there on New Year's Eve at 1 o'clock in the morning.
If you can't get a gig there, John, you're screwed, aren't you? Really? So, was it a good crowd or?
It was very busy. I think we had about 1,500 people in, so it was pretty crazy.
He's a character kills, isn't he? So now this is interesting, and this is what I think a lot of viewers will be fascinated to know, John, because it's not widely known. Megan Nichols obviously rides a lot for you, mainly at Newcastle, your main track up there. Obviously, you sponsor the final Group 1 on the flats, which was obviously at Newcastle as well. Was that some way of a door into Ditchute for you and the jumps?
Yeah, to a certain extent. Actually, Paul and Tom Malone and Megan had maybe made a few inquiries about some of the sort of staying flat horses we had, and I guess conversations sort of grew off the back of that. Timing wasn't necessarily great with obviously the world going into a pandemic, but I thought having horses down with Paul and some of the owners that he had, it was a good networking opportunity. But Baby came along for the first year of our ownership with Paul, and then we've had 2 years of a pandemic, so we haven't got to do as much networking in that respect as we might have hoped via Paul's yard. But obviously we've been quite lucky, and it's been a good experience so far. And as much as anything, I guess actually it's Lauren's fault that we've kind of ended up with a few jumpers, really, because you wished your winters away waiting for her to come back for another season. So it was, as much as anything, it was to kind of give us a bit more something to follow through the winter and not sort of wish your life away waiting for the flat season to start again.
Well, aren't we lucky that managed to play out? Of course, we saw the jumps horses up there by Racing Post rating. How did it come about then, Bravemansgame? Obviously, you own in association with Brian Drew.
Paul, Tom, Megan, myself, we agreed we were going to have a look at a few ex-point-to-pointers in a sale. Those obviously they had their short list. I had a look at the some of the point-to-point videos myself and tried to identify the ones I thought would be interesting. Can't say I'm a great reader of point-to-point form, but there was a few I liked, and Bravemansgame was probably top, if not the top of the list. And he started getting more and more expensive, and he went through my budget. But Paul came away with him and came back to me after the sale and said, would you still be interested if I could find a partner to go halves with? So, we decided that, we'd go 50% and Brian was the other partner. And I guess you could argue we're pretty lucky because he's a pretty nice guy and he's quite a lucky owner himself. So thankfully it's all worked out really well.
Yeah, the Drew family have had rip-roaring success themselves, haven't they? So listen, this is a powerhouse collaboration. We saw what he did as a novice hurdler last year. I imagine after Cheltenham there was a bit of a debrief going along. We know when he got stuffed by Bob Ollinger, and as there was in the whole racing community. Now, when Paul said to you for his eagerly anticipated novice chase campaign you were going to start at Newton Abbot in October, what was the line reacting back?
No issues with Newton Abbot in October. I thought it was quite a ballsy call to go for the grade of race and take on the opposition he did for his debut over fences. I thought he might at least, give him a proper novice to start off in. So it was a fairly punchy call, but I guess it was synonymous with Paul's confidence in the horse, and he did it on the bridle really in the end. So it was a well validated decision, and it was good to watch. They'd always told us what a magnificent jumper of a fence he was, and it was the first time, even as owners, we really got the chance to see what they meant.
And because of the Ballymore last season, there's always been people saying, well, he's going to beat up these small track novices and then get to Cheltenham and we know what will happen. However, fences is the great leveller in the jump game, of course. And when he went to Haydock, that was utterly spectacular. Beat a Grade 1 winner in Itchy Feet, albeit something of a character. And then you went to the Corto Star, Ahoy Senor, the horse that beat you, of course, at Aintree when you took him on over hurdles. Have we ever seen a novice jump better, John?
Well, we hadn't at the time, but then something came out about 3 days later in Ireland and looked almost as good, didn't he? But in my time, I can't remember a novice jumping quite as well, in his first 2 or 3 races as Bravemansgame has done. Whether it's long or short, the way he adjusts himself. I know, obviously, Harry said a few times how clever he is at a fence, and probably until I looked at Bravemansgame as closely as you do as an owner, I didn't really know what that meant. But now you see him shuffling his feet, and he nails every fence regardless of how he's coming into it. It's quite impressive to watch.
Yeah, he's like Bambi on ice, basically, isn't he, Kills? Let's bring you in, and Pat obviously waiting in the wings as well. We'll get a line on this. Listen, he's a massive talking horse. Galopin de Champ, obviously, is the horse that John is referring to, Willie Mullins. We're in potentially.
Yeah, I don't think you took a talking horse is a horse that's shown a little bit, but hasn't yet done it. But I think we can go beyond calling him a talking horse.
So what is he now?
He's a Grade 1 winner as a novice over her.
Is he the best novice chaser around at the moment?
I think he's got the best form. Yeah, as good as Galopin de Champ was, it was a maiden chase, a beginner's chase. The horse in second was rated 118.
Yeah.
Albeit a lightly raced horse and is probably £20 better than that himself. Don't get me wrong. He's very good. He's a Grade 1 winner over hurdles himself. We've got Bob Ollinger, who jumped stickily for some, but actually it was still a beginner's chase. But, the 2 horses that have jumped just spectacularly well are Galopin de Champ and Bravemansgame. And he's done it, he's done it 3 times. Now, I was taking him on. I was just a little bit worried. Does he really stay 3 miles? I don't know why. I actually asked Paul Nicholls after Haydock. I said, how much did Harry actually have left? And he said, loads. Right, but I still had it in my head that, hang on a minute, he's got another, and Ahoy Senor was going to take him on and really go fast. But jumping's the name of the game. And his jumping was completely different class, and he quickened right away. Now, where they go, it's Bob Ollinger in 2 mile 4, it's Galopin de Champ in what's it? But there's no reason, just because you got beat as a novice hurdler, to be afraid of 1 horse, 2 horse, 3 horses when you've got a horse that jumps that well. Doesn't mean he'll win. We'll have to find out where he is. He's got some really good horses to come against, but a horse that jumps that well, and people have to realise, a lot of punters get totally carried away by novice hurdle form, and they don't realise that, well, actually, the best novice hurdlers aren't always the best novice chasers. Yeah. The best novice chasers don't always turn into the best chasers overall. Horses do progress at different rates.
Yeah.
But in Bravemansgame, you've got a horse with a very high cruising speed who jumps as neatly and as efficiently as anything you'll ever see in a novice. You know, he's still got to go and prove it at the top level in open company, but he's a top class Grade 1 novice winning
Now we are getting to the crux of the matter. Pat Cooney, let's bring you in. Waiting in the wings, you've heard everything. What are the current updates then? We'll get to John for a final word on this, but of course, obviously Bravemansgame rushed to the top of the festival chase, the old RSA as we know at the betting. Then along came Galopin de Champs. Bob Oninger still to come out. What's going on?
Well, absolutely. I mean, this could just be a vintage era, couldn't it? And from a bookmaking side of things, you're always trained to find flaws in horses or potential flaws. It's desperately hard with Bravemansgame. The only thing I can give you, he's had 3 runs over fences and he's only won 4 runner races. But he's beaten Fusil Raffles, he's beaten Itchy Feet, and he made Itchy Feet look like the novice that day. And Ahoy Seigneur, he just brings this high level of form to the table, and his jumping is always going to make him ultra competitive. I was at Haydock the day he won, and I've been to millions of races, and it's very rare that you end up clapping one over the winning line, and I did that day. I think he's the best around, certainly in the UK, and you just can't wait for Cheltenham, can you? And I know Paul Nicholls, that was the only thing I'd like to ask, John. Paul Nicholls did flag missing Cheltenham potentially and waiting for Aintree, so is that still on the agenda?
I don't know, actually. I know he feels that Aintree would probably suit him better anyway, but he seems to have become a little bit more favourable towards Cheltenham. I previously wasn't that bothered. Just to sort of follow up on some of the previous comments, you know, he's still not quite the finished article physically. There's still, you know, more strengthening to come, I believe. Certainly wasn't the finished article last year, and as you guys have said, you know, it's chalk and cheese between hurdling and chasing. You know, it's someone beats you at tennis, it doesn't mean they're going to beat you at football. Maybe too big a contrast, but it's not a million miles off, is it? So I knew we would improve physically. You know, he can take or retain a couple of lengths of fence almost because of the way he jumps. So taking on anyone, whether it was Bob Ollinger or similar, as we sort of saw with Lawrence, where we jumped up from 1.25 miles to 1.5 miles to take on CF Class, back down to 1 mile to take on Alpha Centauri. Even if obviously you're increasing the chances of getting beat, I like taking on these big horses and seeing where you stand against them. So, you know, if we were going to Cheltenham previously, I would have liked to have gone for, the 2.5 miler and see where we stood against Bob Ollinger this year, but that didn't look likely. But now there's a genuine threat potentially over 3 miles, and so the festival novice is more appealing as well. So exciting times either way.
Yeah, we have heard behind the scenes there is a bit of a tug of war between the champion trainer and the owners, and I think we're sensing that now. Absolutely great, John. This is the way the horse is supposed to be campaigned.
I'm not totally fixated with Cheltenham. I think I may have replied on Twitter at some point a few weeks ago, or after the Cato Star. I think my target, and that would be in line with Paul's, my main target would be what is now this year's King George, and working backwards from there so that he goes into that in the best possible shape would certainly be my preference. If that can be done whilst going to Cheltenham, great. And if we have to bypass Cheltenham, then I don't have an issue with that. But I'd love to be doing the robot down at Kempton on Boxing Day.
We're bringing a camera for that, John, 100%. So he's put him in the same breath as the mighty Denman, and he's been borne out so far. Denman, of course, beaten over hurdles at Cheltenham. Now he's put him in the same breath as your Clanders Oboe.
Yeah, I mean, look, the way he skipped round Kempton, he's obviously got a bit of speed for a 3 miler.
If you win a quarter star like that, you have to think about the next year.
It's a perfect race, but I mean, I wouldn't say that a horse doesn't act on Cheltenham just because he's been beaten at the festival. It's not like he ran a really bad race. He ran into 2 very, very good horses in what was to my eyes, easily the best novice hurdle run at the track.
And the physical assessment of it is interesting, isn't
And
it?
again, like, you know what I mean, he's a different proposition altogether over fences because he nicks that length. You know, when you've got 18 fences to jump at Cheltenham, you're nicking a length at every fence. And then, you know, how far did he get beat by Bob Ollinger?
Yeah, well, exactly.
You know what I mean? It's a completely different ball game.
Okay, we must switch attention to this week, John. I can sense my producer Carl in the gallery going, how am I going to edit all this? But it is really, really meaty stuff. You have a fascinating runner in the Grade 1 of this weekend. It's Mr. Glass, John, who has been a rapid climber, shall we say. Now, having won the French Furs over 2.6 at Newcastle, this is an interesting move, and his official rating is in the mid-120s. What's the thinking here?
I don't know. I was a bit surprised when Paul suggested it was, you know, going to enter him for this a few weeks ago. He'd entered him in the Challow, and I could understand that, but I appreciated Stage Star, as we've seen, was obviously the number one choice for that race. But he does stay well. I guess one of the things that's hard to gauge is how good he might be. He does absolutely nothing in front. He might have absolutely nothing left to give, but there is a chance that he's still got plenty up his sleeve. We don't know. And as Paul perhaps correctly predicted, Sandown in early to mid-January can sometimes be a bog. And one thing Mr. Glass will definitely do is keep staying, you know, up that hill in the finish. And he's probably a much better horse, as we saw in his bumper form, with genuine soft or worse ground. Taking on Constitution Hill, you know, certainly based on the visual impression the latter gave first time out, you know, that wouldn't be exactly your dream matchup as the owner of the other horses. But you know, maybe if it's heavy, which is getting close to being the case, you know, he might have a surprising sniff. You never know.
Hot topic timing is then for you, bringing it back after a bit of an absence because there have been some sterling and strong news stories this week, and here on What a Shout we will not shirk from them. Right, okay, you know the drill. If you've seen this before, we pick up 6 topics of the week and at random we pick them out. Let's get them up. And now I want to go for this one. Okay, quality review. All right then, the blueprint. Now this is going to take a bit of a mouthful, this, Kills, but it's the Quality Jump Racing Review Group has been set up. Behind the scenes a little bit for most race goers, that's for sure. Back in May, the BHA have now come out and said that we looked at what happened at last season's jumps performance, shall we say, and along with the owners, the trainers, the jockeys, the race goers, the race courses, the media, and the broadcasters. Did you get a call, Kills?
Nope.
I have to say I didn't either. Not sure about Pat Cooney.
I would only have said put the novice handicap chase back at Cheltenham.
You would have done, but there is something of interest in here for you. So the BHA basically come up with 5 aims. Now we've all been waiting for this, guys, haven't we? And the 5 aims are along the lines of increased prize money and having a look at the pattern, obviously making sure our top stables can compete with those from Ireland, and also levelling up, neutralising, I believe the word was the chief of the BHA, Ruth Quinn, used in enticing the British owners back to buying some horses and putting them with our powerhouse stables. And like Sheveley Park, for example, all went over to Ireland, didn't they, with the prize money. Lots of on. They've made 2 recommendations, basically, messing around with the pattern. It needs to happen. We'll wait to see exactly what that is. Ruth goes on. It's a great piece. Check out her comment in your members section. You can do that. It's a must read, really. But, John, I want to bring you in on this, a leading owner out there. What are your initial thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's obviously a big reaction to the drubbing the UK got off Ireland at Cheltenham last year, and it was a very heavy drubbing. Have we maybe overreacted to it a little bit? You know, these sort of waves go in cycles, don't they? Historically, where one country's been more dominant than the other. We know that Willie and Gordon have had good success over the last 5 years plus at Cheltenham, and you can understand owners sending more horses to them than maybe they had previously to try and tap into that success. And obviously that's just giving them a bit more ammo at the moment. I guess Cheveley Park's probably a good example, though, of maybe where some of our issues lie. there aren't a huge amount of owners in the UK willing to spend a lot of money on unproven horses. JP would obviously be one who does spend a lot and would send some of him into the UK and some to Ireland. Cheveley Park arguably should be an owner that could do the same, but they've chosen to send to Ireland. That may be partly down to the trainer's success in recent years, but Ireland certainly pays better prize money than the UK, which would be maybe one other attraction for them. They don't do the same to any sort of extent with their flat horses, and there must be a reason beyond just the training names themselves as to why Cheveley Park are doing that. Obviously, they run a very successful breeding operation, so prize money alone is not necessarily the be-all and end-all to them on the flat, because they can gain value via the UK pattern to their stock. But there isn't a sort of jumps breeding operation for them to the same extent. So they need their reward via other methods. So there's maybe a couple of things that are leading towards it.
What do you make of the race programme as it is, John? Is it something you follow? Obviously, you're a busy man with the business, and you mentioned, haven't you, that networking was a big attraction to you with the Paul Nicholls stable. Haven't quite been able to get off the ground. Hopefully, that changes in 2022. And the other question is have you been wooed from Ireland at all? Is the prize money the consideration there something that would have been of interest to you? Obviously, you can see why people would do it. Tom Malone is your bloodstock advisor, your main one. We had Tom on the show just before Christmas. That was a great show for everyone out there as well. The BHA found a stark difference in the way that horses are campaigned leading up to the Cheltenham Festival. I suppose when you've got Paul Nicholls on your side, that's never going to be a problem.
No, I mean, certainly to date, Paul's, like I say, been quite punchy and is always willing to take on a challenge campaigning wise. But I guess maybe in the UK and it's said a lot, but are we too focused on Cheltenham? As soon as Bravemansgame last year, made his hurdles debut, or he won on his second novice in the end. But there was talk of what race he would run at Cheltenham, and you're thinking, goodness sake, it's like 6 months away. There's a lot of races and a lot of targets and things that we should be desiring to win in the interim, and then if we're still going at Cheltenham, then that becomes a bonus, doesn't it? But I don't know, maybe it's one of the problems in the UK is that we've become utterly transfixed on Cheltenham itself.
Well, the top of the incentives, John and Paul and Pat, let's bring you in, guys, now, is to see Britain's best horses running regularly against each other outside of the Cheltenham Festival. Now, the Clarence South is coming up, isn't it? This is the old Victor Chandler Chase when it was a handicap. And hopefully we will see Energumene take on Shishkin there before the first two in the market, the big match everyone wants to see.
Yeah, but you can see what the bookies think of that, don't you? Because it's evens Energumene and 2-1 Shishkin.
So whether that happens or not, Kills, it is not quite the point for this. The point here is there's going to be lobbying now by the BHA for that to revert to being a handicap. You're surely in favour of that.
Yeah, way in favour of that. I mean, the point being, there are too many graded races for horses in general, and there are miles too many graded races for 2-milers, because there aren't that many 2-milers around, either over hurdles or jumps at the moment. So we've got these Grade 1 races. You've got a Tingle Creek, you've got a Clarence House, but then you've got the Grade 2s, you've got the Desert Orchid, the Game Spirit. Yeah. There's too many races for horses to avoid each other. So all you end up is with 4 or 5 runner races with 3 horses with 0 chance whatsoever running in them, and a couple of good horses. It's not good enough. I'm not at all convinced that not having runs does a horse any good. You got to be, remember those battle-hardened horses of old, like, you know what I mean, the horses that used to run all, on a regular basis, your Desert Orchids, and your Night Nurses and Sea Pigeons and etc. over hurdles. They just ran against each other. They ran and ran and ran, and now it's just, there's only one target, it's Cheltenham, that's it, forget the rest. Yeah. Well, I take these races, if they don't want to run in them, I take them away from them and put a nice big valuable handicap. I'm not saying, that Ascot race, for whatever reason, Ascot does not attract massive fields. and 2 mile handicaps, even when they've got some decent 2 mile handicaps to go. They don't get huge fields for them when they should do. But put a massive prize 2 mile handicap chase on there in January, and you might.
That's top of Ruth Quinn's sort of wish list, if you like, a mid-season 2 mile handicap like the Ladbrokes Trophy, the Old Hennessy, of course. Okay, Pat, let's bring you in for a final word with John on this. What do the bookmakers make of this?
Yeah, the one gripe everyone has is the field sizes. Now, at the top end, I have no problem at all with small fields. I mean, if we ended up at a race at Cheltenham or Aintree and it's just 2 runners, one of which is Bravemansgame taking on Galopin des Champs, that wouldn't bother me at all. It's just as you go down the lower end of it. And the biggest turn-off for people, even me on a day off, I look at the card and think, oh, there's 4 runner races, not for me. But the field sizes, yes, if you can make them handicaps, so much the better. The Clarence House, of course, was a handicap years ago, wasn't it? Remember Desi giving weight away to Panto Prince, and that didn't galvanise that to be a 10-runner race or anything. But it's the field sizes that I think is the biggest gripe we have as bookmakers. You want, ideally, 8-runner races and beyond. And how that can be happened is the best way to make it is to make them handicapped. So, you look at the Clarence House, you'd love the big 2 to turn up, but horses like Sky Pirate, they're rated £12 behind Shishkin. A horse like him would be very much of interest in that race were it a handicap. So I can see wisdom in that being a handicap for sure. But the field sizes is the biggest gripe in the bookmaking industry, that's for sure.
Thanks, Pat. Okay, John, a final word then from you on this, which is this is going to be a sizzling topic. One senses there'll be a 2-tribe reaction to this, John. Bravemansgame, all going well this season. Even if he wins, at Cheltenham, wins at Aintree, punches down wherever you want to go. Would you be looking at something like the Ladbrokes Trophy? Are you scared of running your great horses in handicaps like a lot of people are?
No, I don't think so. You look at Denman and the example Pat gave there of Desi. It's almost like their reputations were enhanced because they won big handicaps off monster weights, rather than necessarily just for the grade 1s and off level weights that they won. So, I think if you're confident in your horse and your horse is in good form, it's not the worst idea in the world, because it adds a little bit of gravitas to their resultant legend almost, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely needs to happen, doesn't it? That's for sure.
Field sizes is kind of related to handicaps to some extent at the moment, though. I think unless you've got a horse that's right up and capable at the top table, I think a lot of trainers and owners alike are a little bit wary of entering some of these graded races, for fear that they're going to, blow their handicap mark by maybe running closer than perhaps would be expected. And that's definitely something I think on both the flat and jumps in recent years. There's definitely been an increased fear in running and taking a chance in big races, not because you might get beat, but more people are worried about what their handicap mark's going to be coming out of it and wish they'd gone down the handicap route instead. So, maybe that's just one thing that needs changing, that a mark can't be changed based on a sort of level weights graded race. And I think that might encourage more people to chance their arm in it.
Let's hope that the right people are looking at that, John. Wise words, absolutely. I could just see it, John, now. The Vertem Futurity Clarence House 2023. What do you reckon?
Yeah, the Vertem Clarence House has got a good ring to it, hasn't it?
Absolutely. You heard it here first. Breaking news.
The marketing are going to be straight onto me.
Don't worry. Absolutely. The BHA, they're watching. Right, and what else have we got on the screen then for you, hot topics wise? I've quite enjoyed this. The name game kills. This, of course, is around the renaming of the Marsh Chase as we knew it last season. The JLT, as it was inaugural called. And it is registered as the Golden Miller, of course. Why can't we just... I know it's the Turner's Chase, this one. But everyone's saying, where's Galopin des Champs going? Where's Bravemansgame going? Where's Bob Wellinger going? We don't know him. Why can't we have the Golden Miller in the title? The Golden Miller Turner's Chase or the... Hey, mate, I think there's a lot of people talking about this at the moment. It's right, isn't it?
Well, it's sponsors, isn't it? And these races... these races came with a sponsor at the start, didn't they? It's not like it's an old existing race that's always had that name. It was just a name that was rated. Oh, we better give it a name just in case it doesn't have a sponsor, sort of thing. So when they've got sponsors, you got to give the sponsors a chance. Of course. But you need a sponsor to stay for a little while, don't you? And then you get it established. I mean, you know, I still know it as a JLT for some reason.
What's the RSA called then? The old RSA? Is it the Festival Chase?
It's the Festival Novices Chase.
We've got a Festival Handicap.
Yeah, I know.
They need to come up with something better.
Yeah, they need to come up with something an awful lot better than that.
Yeah.
You know, but you need a decent name, and you do need a sponsor who's willing to cooperate rather than just put their name all over it.
Well,
now there are some races. Look, we've got the Bet365 Gold Cup. We've got our sponsors, and people still call it the Whitbread. Now, why do they call it the Whitbread? Because they sponsored it for so long. But we really should be dropping the Whitbread because they're just a firm.
Yeah.
A business
who
no longer support racing. So why should we give them any credit?
It's the greatest thing they ever did, Whitbread, isn't it?
Yeah, like that, Hennessy, etc. They're the only reasons we know the names, but they are just a business that no longer supports racing.
And the Royal and Sun Alliance, you know, they held that for so long, didn't we? So we need the sponsors to stick around, basically.
Exactly.
Fair play for the Turners for coming out and doing it. But of course, if you're wondering what the intermediate novice chase is, the Turners novice chase it is when you're looking at your anti-post markets.
I've just learned that, by the way.
Well, I know. I seem to remember you asked what it was last week. That's why it came into the hot topics this week. Believe it or not, work does start on every What a Shout as soon as we finish for the following week. Pat Cooney, out the traps. This is you then. Bet365 sticking their hand up, reverting to type.
Yes, absolutely. On Monday, we went non-runner, no bet and best odds guaranteed on the 5 championship races at the Cheltenham Festival. Champion Hurdle, Champion Chase, Ryanair, Stayers and Gold Cup. And there was just a lull in the calendar this week, we thought, and we get inundated with people immediately after the Christmas is over. When are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? And we just thought, what's wrong with now? And that's just how it was. And bear in mind, I think not just the non-runner, no bet concession, the best odds guarantee is a big, big help as well, because you can tap back your horse at, say, 7-1. If he goes and wins at 10, you're going to get that as well. So you might think a race might cut up. You're wrong, it doesn't. But your horse goes up at a bigger price and can still win. And it's tellingly, you know, very interesting how the market has been shaped as a result of it. And the common theme seems to be people backing a horse who were disappointed last time out. Manella Rindo in the Gold Cup has been popular, for example. People thinking, well, if he comes back and wins at Leopardstown, why wouldn't he be near enough favourite? So you get people like that backing horses who have maybe been on the injured list and maybe coming back, maybe not coming back. But equally at the top end of the market, the Champion Chase has been really interesting. We've laid Chasson Poussoir at 7-1 non-runner, no bet. Now, we all know he's maybe not a fan of coming across the pond and running in England, but he'll only run at Cheltenham, wouldn't he, if Willie Mullins was happy with him? And who knows, if something happens with one of the front two in the market, he's going to go up at half the price. But on that Champion Chase, we have a big stake in customers, quite shrewd. He's backed both of them, Shiskin at 4-5 and Inorgamine at 9-4. Now, if one of them doesn't run for whatever reason, they're going to shorten dramatically in price. So people are backing the short ones as well as the sexy outside ones who are coming off a long layup. So it's really lit the 5 races up. So good to do it. And we were first up with it. Quickly copied, of course, but such is the nature of the game. But well worth doing it. A good exercise and very punter friendly, I might add.
150 at Sandown, kicking off the big race previews for you this weekend. This is the trickiest one we've done, I reckon, all jump season. And a real conundrum for punters here, Pat Cooney. Gunsight Ridge comes back out to play.
You're going to be asked to back him around about 6-4. His last run looks pretty solid, doesn't it? He was second to Long Press, who's impressed everybody again since. The only conundrum is 1 mile 7 and 119 yards on Sandown on Saturday. That last run was 2 miles 3. Connections have flirted up and down in trip. Is he at 1 mile 7.5 horse? Remains to be seen. 6-4, I think you can be against him. I quite like one with mixed form, Monsieur Lecoq, who has got up and down form. Not so good last time out, but a chance overall on form. I'm looking to oppose this favourite purely at the price and at the trip.
OK, thank you, Pat. I think a lot of people will be looking at that now. Gunsight Ridge. We had Ollie Murphy on the show, of course, last week. Murph's unlucky with brewing up a storm. That was horrible to see, wasn't it? Probably would have won, wouldn't he, I think? But anyway, Gunsight Ridge. Now, we have gone to the well with this chap, haven't we? And he doesn't see out his races. He's had a few wind issues.
He doesn't see out his races. I mean, you know, I thought...
Oh, you're going for him again?
No, I'm not going for him again. I thought that he finished really strongly at Aintree. And you were warning me, well, hang on, this is a routine short price defeat horse, and I thought, well, yeah, he's going up the trip now. He's going to, and of course he runs into long press, and he gets beat 6 lengths. I still thought he was going to win quite easily 2 out, and then he didn't find anything there.
Yeah.
But I think he just got outclassed by a very good horse. I don't think he wants to go back to 2 mile. That's the problem.
Well, exactly. They're kind of probably straight after the race. They were like, right, we're going to have to come back into the race.
They just got outclassed by a very good horse.
And if you watch him on the run-in, he does sort of pull up a bit and then go on again.
Yeah,
he just does.
I can see that, but he definitely stayed. And dropping back in trip round there, they might not go that fast. And I just think like Pat, he's got a load of short price defeats to his name. He's still only won a maiden hurdle, 6 runners, and 11 attempts.
And Ollie Murphy warned us about is having a quieter journey than normal because he's changed his indoctrine basically, so he's flu vaccinated, all of them, his inoculations, rather. And it has gone a little bit quiet for Murphs. And I don't know, 6-4, we've got to be taking him on. Who with?
Moonlight. I think Moonlight is quite interesting.
Is he still in training?
Listen, he had wind surgery and he pulled up reasonably early and the first time out in the Orton Gold Cup. So his next race, you could call it probably still needed. But he was 22 to 1 running against Editor the Geet. And 3 out, he was trading at even money. He was absolutely cantering. Now, he's always been a talented horse. He's now been given a chance. He's dropped down the rankings. He's actually £3 lower than winning in February on heavy ground, beating a course specialist in Dolos at the track. So I think he's quite interesting. He's shortened, he was a big price earlier in the week. He's shortened now because there's a few non-runners. But I think if there's one to beat Gunsight Ridge, it might be him. He's got a bit of class about him.
Well, he's got the back class, which is why I'm looking at Bundoran, who ran in the same Editor to Geet race. And if you watch it, I was looking at Johnny Burke on it. I'm like, come on, Johnny, this is a horse that doesn't mind getting on with it a bit. And this horse has got a race in him, Bundoran.
He disappointed me. I backed him.
But he was way off the pace. And you couldn't get near Editor Geet that day. And if you watch him, he storms up. Now, this could be a Gunsight Ridge type herring I'm going for at a bigger price. And he doesn't often race right-handed these days. But he goes on heavy ground. And if he is there 2 out, I think he'll eat up the hill. He either wants further, but he's been given a chance by an handicapper again. And the way he's run 2 times around Cheltenham, the old fire burns. So we're getting some back class to beat Gunsight Ridge. You know what's going to happen. Ollie Murphy will be on target. It's 2022 here on What a Shout. We're ramping up for you out there. This is a bonus preview for you because Jetoile's trainer is out there. Ryan Potter joins us on the show. Happy New Year to you, Ryan.
Yeah, same to yourself. Thank you very much for having me on.
Absolutely fantastic. Now, before we get to your runner, I think we call him your breakthrough runner, Ryan, this season. Where on earth have you come from? Your name has been coming up in headlines all over the place this season. A couple of punts landed.
Well, this is only my first full season. I got the license out July last year, so yeah, it's only my first full season, so that's probably why you haven't really heard of me before.
So did you start off in the point-to-point sphere, I assume, Ryan?
Well, I started back, I went on work experience when I was like 13 years old. I went to Andy Oliver's, a flat trainer in Ireland, and it just sort of snowballed from there, really. I came over here and I did my farrier apprenticeship. So I got not out of horses, but out of racing for 4 years. And then as soon as I qualified, then I started training a few pointers and riding a few pointers. I was a bit better at the training than I was at the riding. So I give up the riding, and yeah, it's just sort of snowballed from there, really.
Okay, so 17 winners to date so far. And like I say, a couple of gambles have been landed out there this season. It's going well for you. Let's talk about your runner in the Tolworth. He is a fascinating chap. I've been lucky enough to analyse a few of his races in that department for the Racing Post. Primarily his win at Leicester last time. Is he a bit of a nutcase?
You would... Yeah, no, not at all. He's actually the quietest horse in the yard, but the second that you do a piece of work or you're on the track, he just turns, he's really keen, and he doesn't maybe do himself much favours, but around the yard, everything else, he's the quietest horse around. But yeah, he just likes to get on with things. But the thing is, he maybe doesn't race that economically, but he seems to be able to quicken off that relentless gallop as well. It's not as if he's finishing his races weak. He's able to gallop and quicken off it. So it's exciting.
It wasn't a bad field he beat at Leicester last time. We might see his form advertised this weekend along some of the supporting cards as well. So we got the pace in the race. Obviously, he started off in the points. He didn't set the world light there. So how much more improvement has this chap got in him? Obviously, we've got Constant Houston Hill to look at, but you're never afraid of one horse, right?
No, definitely not. Like at the end of the day, Constitution Hill he did get beaten as point to point, and the form of that isn't very solid. I know he's obviously trained by the master, Nikki Henderson, but a second favourite for the Supreme for a reason. But look, was my day at his best the day that he beat him? I don't know. But there's a lot of. I think it's a very open race. So yeah, who knows?
Oh, great stuff. This is interesting. Gills, waiting in the wings, then let's bring you in. A word for Nikki Henderson, his team. COVID have gone through 7 barrows, and Nikki isolating. Hope you're well, Nikki, out there, and everything's fine for you. So he won't be there at the weekend. I am a bit surprised that this chap is second favourite for the Supreme. Yeah, I am. I know you have. But with the likes of the champion bumper winner, Sir Gerhard, I know he hadn't run at the time. To put him in that short, it seemed like it was a bit of a hendo reaction.
No, I mean, I don't think it was a hendo reaction. I think it was the performance-related reaction compared to what John Bond did first time out in his maiden hurdle. This was a proper performance-related, and he was quoted at 12s, and then he went down to 8s, and then 6s, and then he's now 4s, and I think it was fully justified. For a start, he earned a racing post rating of 148. That's the highest first time out racecourse debut hurdles RPR in at least a dozen years. And the time backs it up too.
And you were there that day.
I was there that day. I was there that day. I was actually quite impressed with my time when he'd won the time before. And I'd see this horse just laughing at him, and he really quickened away. Now he was a good, I think it was a good 8 seconds faster than the other 2 2-mile hurdles on the card. And despite having got to 2 out quicker than the pair of winners in the other 2 races, he still left them behind, both the winners, by the best part of 20 lengths from 2 out. So, to me it was a shish, because Shishkin was really fast on his first run at Newbury, and to me it was something like that. And he's potentially, it's all about potential with these horses. They've got to improve, but potentially he's a very, very good horse.
Is he vulnerable tomorrow? Because he's been put in at this price because of his Supreme aspirations, and we know that they like him at 7 barrows. I had the word that he was very, very good before he ran, but it was around that time when they had been waiting for the rain and they weren't too sure. He did drift on the day. He powered up the hill, obviously. Time was very, very good. But that's all right. Gino in there for friend of the show, Jamie Stone as well. He looks good. Mr. Class, we've heard from John Dance, a horse that's only going one way, and Jetoile as well.
It's quite interesting, actually, because, we've got 3 horses with 2 wins next to their name, but they haven't actually achieved what you'd hope for to be running in a Tolworth hurdle. I'll give you an example, right? That's all right. Gino has an official rating of 132. In the last 8 years, of all the horses that went into the Tolworth hurdle, having run enough time to be given a rating, there was 24. 21 of them were rated higher than 132. So when you're talking about what the horses have done to be running in a Tolworth hurdle, it's far less than in normal years, apart from one horse who's way clear. And, to me, he just wins unless... Yeah. Unless he doesn't get overrun over the hurdles or he gets bogged down in the ground, and we don't know about that. I think he'll handle the ground fine.
Are you suggesting he's at the right price then?
If you ask me if I was going to back John Bond at 2-1 for the Supreme or Constitution Hill at 4-1, I'd back Constitution Hill all day long, every single day.
It was a great piece in the start of the paper. James Byrne, our Lambourne correspondent, got a word with Michael Buckley. Of course, he's out in Florida, the great owner now. Finian's Rainbow, we know about Michael's champion chase winner. God.
Painful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we won't go there. But Spirit Son, we're hoping this will be the next Spirit Son, of course. It was going to be. We thought
he looked an absolute superstar, didn't he? Yeah, he looked an absolute, especially when he bolted up at Aintree. But then we never saw.
It's great to see these colours back. But Ryan, listen, you've heard from us. You're probably feeling more confident now, are you?
Not at all. We know it's a big task, but look, we're not going for a free lunch and a day out. We're going there and try our best anyway.
3 o'clock then at Sandown, everyone's favourite, but no more than the man sitting next to me on my left. It's the Veteran Series. They come out to play from one veteran to another. Who takes out
I love the old. I've been to every single one of these veterans.
Are you there tomorrow?
At Sandown. I'll be there tomorrow.
Oh, you heard it here, viewers.
Love it. I've only backed the winner once, Jeff Peck, a couple of years ago. But
well, I don't want to hear that because we're actually in agreement here, aren't we?
I thoroughly enjoy it. Yeah, I don't think anybody would argue with ASO being favourite because the second to Black Lion suddenly looks really good with Black Lion winning by half the track again at Haydock last time out. Little worries about him. Does he really stay 3 mile when the ground is bottomless like it's likely to be because it's going to rain all day? 2, his form on right-handed tracks. He actually hasn't beaten a finisher on a right-handed track since 2017. Whoa. But he's only running 3 races now with the King George, the Peter Chase and the Ascot Chase. Like, so he was running in good company, but just a little bit of a query about it. And he's rated 149, which is at least £10 higher than every previous winner bar Sol, who was 145 in the inaugural run in 2016. So, little worries. I think I'll take him on.
Fair to say you know a fair bit about these,
I've got a couple. Yeah, I love them, don't I? Like, I mean, I love them. And one thing you can say is almost every single horse in this race is well handicapped on old form.
Now we've done the long press Gunsight Ridge race, but there was a horse in that caught both of our eyes, wasn't there?
Yeah, the King's Writ, and it's quite interesting because 2 mile 3 furlong on decent-ish ground is just not for him at all when you see him. But it's also quite interesting. 3 of the 6 winners of this race qualified early the year before and then worked their way down the handicap, and he's now £6 lower than when third to Sir Ivan in the qualifier in March, and he'll be £12 better off for Sir Ivan given the jockey bookings as well. He's only beaten 4 3/4 lengths. And his best form's on soft ground. He's got that 1 run since against long press to get another drop. He was never going to be competitive, but he actually travelled quite well, and he actually ran quite well despite the distance beaten. And of course, he wants 3 mile on soft ground. His best form, arguably second in the Somerset National at Wincanton last year. Similar time of year as well. I think that was in January. And 2 of his other best runs, soft ground 3 miles with Josh Newman claiming 7 up front. So I think there's plenty. There's plenty of reasons to think he'll run a good race. He was a good second on his only previous run at the track over 2-4 earlier in his career, so I think he's got a shot. I backed Rolling Dillon as well, as the other one I've backed.
Who's got more obvious claims on paper?
He has more obvious claims on paper. He's obviously been a much better horse than the 128 he's running off. He's been pointing, he's come back, he's run 2 decent races, finishing second both times. Last time over course and distance when ridden by a female amateur having her first ever ride in public. It gave him a good ride, to be fair. But, just shaped really well. It's got some back form at Sandown again, finished 5th in a Bet365 Gold Cup, 5th in a Masters, both off marks in the low to mid 140s, and he's off 128 now, so I think he'll run well as well.
There you go, case has been made. A free preview for the Saturday Sizzlers from Kills, who will be at the track. OK, Pat, you've heard from us. There've been money for the King's Writ. We think we found one. Are you on it as well?
Yeah, this is one of those horses and one of these races, isn't it? You're sitting down and you're studying hard and you think, I think I've got one here. I respect ASO. Can he give £10 and beyond to all the other horses? Probably, but I wouldn't want to find out around about 5 to 2, 3 to 1 to money. I found the King's Writ like everybody else, really. And I was wondering why on earth were they running him over 2 miles 3 on his reappearance behind Long Press and the other fella. But it was just a run round, and he has been dropped £4 in the handicap for that. So a good plan. Stays, jumps, travels, a likeable horse, and you can imagine he's been set out for this race. Josh Newman taking an invaluable 7 off. I'm sure this horse is going to run a mighty race. So I'm a King's Writter as well. Looks like everybody's landed on this one.
There you go, unanimous decision then for the King's Writ. Let's hope he jumps more fluently than the King's Speech, and there will be royal scenes in this studio if he gets the job done. 3:15, shall we pop to Wincanton then? A real treat for us on Saturday. A tricky puzzle indeed. I'm going to get this out of the way. I found it very difficult. I thought coming down from Grade 1 class, he might just see them all off, and that's the Fav Stolen Silver.
Yeah, worry about Stolen Silver is he looked laboured last time, and he wasn't always a horse with Nigel Twiston-Davies, who saw his season out to the end. Just a little bit concerned about that. Obviously, the extra distance might suit him. It's going to be quite wet. Whether he'll really want it if it's deep is another matter. And I just got looking, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, but could be a shrewd move by the Tizzards to take a chaser down the handicap by running over hurdles. A year ago, he was third, admittedly beaten 11 lengths, but Slate House was third in this race to Capeland off a mark of 150. He was running 1 chase since, and he's running off 134 now. That's a hell of a lower mark, and he is a chaser. He's not a hurdler. He's won a Quarto Star. You know what I mean? So he's got some back form. He's on a really low mark. He just lasted that little bit longer at Taunton last time. I know he was still only 10th, but he wasn't beaten that far by a Highway 102. And like I said, he wants soft ground and fences, not good ground and hurdles.
Yeah.
So I think he's got a serious chance.
I will be having a look at that replay straight after this show, Kills. Very interesting. Pat Cooney, where did you go?
Well, I think Stolen Silver should be favourite. I think it was an okay fourth to Edward Stone, who's Arkle bound, of course, the last time out. Current second favourite, Mont d'Avalois for Paul Nicholls. Well, he's not run for 455 days, so you imagine he'll be a drifter in the market. I keep coming back to Killer Clown, who won so impressively on Boxing Day of 2020. I'm beginning to wish I didn't see that race because I've backed him in all 4 races since, and he's got beaten all 4. But last time out was 2 mile 6. He travelled well and maybe found 2 mile 6. I thought it would be ideal for him. Clearly he wasn't. Emma Lavell's dropping him down to 2.5. 2.5, good to soft. Wincanton, 135 now. He was 138 when he travelled so well at Newbury. Killer Clown, I'm sticking with him. I'm sticking with you, fella.
All right, the worry about him will be the ground kills, of course.
Yeah,
he's definitely
really
better
soft,
than that
he's
Newbury run.
he looked like he was going to win, didn't he? Turning into the straight, but he
I think
didn't
went a
get
bit hard.
home. If there's a lot of rainfall, because it depends on how much falls, because it has dried out a bit there. It's only good at soft in places, I think. But if they get a lot, it'll be against him.
So you think you found one? I'm on the fav. I think it'll outclass him. And Pat, well, could he have a custard pie on his face? Bringing the curtain down at Sandown then, our final race preview is the 3:35. Something of a warm-up for the Imperial Cup back there in March. It is a 2-mile handicap. Very interesting race. Pat Cooney, who's on top?
Hermes Bay is favourite at the moment for Mrs. Williams, and Chester Williams claiming 3. And why not? An impressive winner of a novice hurdle last time out. Just like the race, 3 runs over hurdles, a win and 2 seconds. Got that unexposed profile. I think a worthy favourite, sure to go well. McNamara, second favourite, has his chance, of course. And then Natural History is an interesting runner for the Gary Moore team. There always seems to be everyone that always seems to be a fan of this horse, but he pulls so hard. And if he pulls hard, 3:35 Sandown Saturday, that could be really testing ground. And I'd worry about him coming up the hill. If Jamie Moore can settle him, big chance because he is well handicapped. But Hermes Bay, I think he's the right progressive profile to take the lucky last out here.
Okay, Pat Cooney dreaming of his staycation because he's actually called Hermes Boy, not Hermes Bay. But his form was advertised, I think, in a novice at Exeter last weekend, wasn't it? So you can see it there. And Monsieur Lecoq has won this for the yard as well. But again, we think we might have found one.
We think we might have found one. I mean, Hermes Boy's, it could be miles better than his handicap mark, but I mean, it's a stiff enough mark on what he's actually done. Trainer had Monsieur Lecoq a few years ago, won it by half the track. So it could be one of them. But Navajo Pass. We've both come down on this. I mean, we're giving horses another chance, aren't we? Basically, he's come back from a wind off and he hasn't run much of a race at Sandown and on Tingle Creek Day, but he's dropped another £4. He's got a £5 claim on
Theo Gillard.
Theo Gillard, who won, who sent him to a really wide margin victory at Musselburgh on New Year's Day last year. Before he went on to beat Bouvardere on heavy ground in the Haydock Champion Hurdle Trial, and he's now running off a much lower mark. Ground can't be soft enough for him.
If your connection's right, Keels, with this, let me pipe in a bit. You can't have wanted to go back to Sandown if you knew that race probably something didn't go right. They could have gone up north. This is McCain and Tim Leslie, isn't it?
Well,
they could have found another race for him.
Yeah, let's have another go. But the ground can't be soft enough for him, which he's going to get. I mean, I'm sure that's one of the reasons they're coming back, because he's going to be much softer this time.
He beat Bouvardere, didn't he?
He loves really soft ground. If the wind ups work, we find you tend to find out by the second start. This is the second start. He's not badly handy. Got first-time cheek pieces. Donald McCain, 2 winners out of 4 runners last month in first-time cheek pieces. Okay. One of those at 10-1, so it's not like they were all favs. I'd give him a chance. He's just well handicapped on what he's done, and he's only 6. We're not talking about an old horse who's lost his way. He looked like he was going really forward until he got thrashed by Goshard at Wincanton, after which he had a wind up straight away. So I'll give it one more chance to have worked.
Yeah, listen, last 2 races at Sandown, if there's one man to jump off a cliff with, it's probably not you, but I'm happy to be doing so. What are you doing? You with us? Get your comments below in the final race. Nap time then, the first naps of 2022. Where are we going to go? I'll start, if you don't mind, in the fillies listed race at Sandown before terrestrial TV kicks off. You're treated to Martello Sky coming back in the 12:40. Willie Mullins brings one over for this. Probably lack of opportunity for Galway, and she'll have to be absolute mustard first time out to beat this horse, who Aidan Coleman, I know, thinks there's more to come from her. She'll do for me.
Tall Sky Ace was a big price in that. Well, we'll see.
Oh, I'm going to counter your nap then in a minute, because
You can
I
counter
was
my
going to nap in your race,
Right,
but you've taken...
Yeah. D. Orton was going to nap Grey Diamond in the 205 at Wincanton, but I got in first with Glazou, trained by Paul Nicholls. Again, another horse has dropped rather quickly in the handicap, £8 for 2 runs. And last time, just really went off, just tugged too hard, went off too fast, and didn't see it out. Never looked, to my eyes, like a horse that wanted much further than 2 mile anyway. That was 2 mile 2 at Taunton. But had them all on the stretch going down the back straight. Didn't see the race out. Don't think it was a bad race at all. Quite enough. Was first. Nietzsche was second. They've both been in the frame in Greatwood hurdles in this time. Nietzsche won one. Yeah. So I think it was a decent one. It was the best time on the card by a mile. So I give him another chance off a lower mark than now a pound lower than winning on the bridle. Bryony Frost riding for Paul Nicholls. What more could you want?
Well, don't give me too much abuse on WhatsApp.
And it's 12 to 1
over the final fence. All right, so I'll have a saver there on Keels. Pat Cooney, where are you going? Please tell me it's Sandown.
No, a little bit further north, Newcastle. I'm going in the 123. And you like horses that tick boxes? Well, here's one. Bavington Bob, trained by Anne Hamilton, trainer of Tommy's Oscar, very popular horse. This horse won over the course and distance last time out, and he won handily enough. He only went up a pound. Not often he only got a pound for winning a race, but this fella did. Tomorrow he got Brian Hughes aboard, course and distance, youngest horse in the race. He's only had the 2 runs over fences, unexposed, ticks every box going. So Newcastle, 1, 2, 3 in the afternoon, Bavington Bob.
Well, 1, 2, 3, Ted Rogers for Pat Cooney. Then he had to go up to Newcastle, didn't he? There is your weekend treble. Okay, that's what we've got time for here then on this weekend. The first weekend back of 2022. Let's hope you enjoyed the holiday period. What a lot to look forward to we have got. Many more times we're going to see you, hopefully this year, Paul Kealy. Thanks for coming back.
You are. You're going to see me sober for the next 6 weeks after tomorrow as well.
After tomorrow?
After tomorrow.
I love it how it's a sort of dry
I don't believe
January.
in to do that dry January because I've got to go to the Veterans Chase Day at Sandown first. But after that, I am going to...
So you're going to be carried out on your shield and...
Yeah, I'm just going to get my head down to Cheltenham and try and behave myself for a few weeks.
Good to hear, good to hear. What a pleasure it was to have John Dance and Ryan Potter joining us on the show as well. Pat Cooney, a pleasure to have you back. When will we see you back in the studio, Pat?
Yes, all being well, I'll be there next week, so looking forward to that.
Happy days. Great to have our sponsors on board as ever. Great to have you on board as ever. Let's hope you've enjoyed it. If you do, like and subscribe on YouTube. Keep your comments coming in over the weekend. This is the best preview show you will find anywhere. I think you'll agree. So for myself, Dave Orton, signing off. Don't forget to download the free Must-Have Racing Post app. You can do it in the App Store or the Google Play Store. Do gamble responsibly. It's January, people. Those holidays were expensive, weren't they? And of course, there's loads of sport out there. Enjoy.